Hey everybody, it's Dr. Ashley. Happy Saturday, and I've got a new episode of Recovery Hacks for you today. And today I want to talk about dialectics. Now, I know you guys have heard this term before because I've done other recovery hacks on this, but you know what? It's one of these concepts that is a little bit counterintuitive, especially when it comes to our feelings. And it's something that we really can't be reminded of too much. In fact, every time I go over this within myself and share this with clients, it impacts them in a different way each time. And even within myself, I take something a little bit different from it each time I circle around this concept. So even though you may have heard this before, even though you know what I'm probably going to say, it's a very worthwhile reminder as we navigate through this human experience that is full of very complicated emotions, right? Now, for those of you who may be newer to the community and haven't seen some of my older recovery hacks, a dialectic, which is kind of a strange word, but what it means is two things that appear opposite but hold true at the same time. Okay, so when we think about feelings, what this means is you can have a dialectical emotional experience. You can feel two feelings that appear opposite but can hold true at the same time. Okay. Now, intuitively, if two things are opposites, then we assume that one of them must get canceled out, right? It's either this or it's that. But in feelings and in this dialectical understanding of feelings, we can actually make space for all of it. So rather than either or, it becomes both and. Now, let me give you an example to make this a bit more concrete. So let's say that you are going through an experience and you are feeling both relieved and sad. This is a really common dialectical experience that many humans go through after the loss of a loved one, where maybe this person who died had an illness and they were really sick for a long time. Or maybe you were their caretaker and it was really draining on you as much as you wanted to do it for them. It was also really difficult. So when they pass, you probably have a very dialectical experience. You have opposing emotions that are all true at the same time. So you can be feeling both relieved, maybe relieved that they're no longer in pain, maybe relieved that you're no longer their full-time caregiver, and at the same time, really sad that they're gone, right? Seems like it should be one or the other, but in fact, it's both. Now, why does this happen with our feelings? Well, quite frankly, we're very complicated humans, right? We're not black and white. We're not all or nothing, and we're not simple in how we experience life. So what that means is we have a lot of different parts of us that have different needs, different agendas, different emotional responses to different things. And so we go through one event or one experience with lots of different parts inside of us that have different needs and reactions, which means we're going to have lots of different feelings about the same experience. Okay. Now, if you don't understand this concept, then intuitively you might be inclined to try to choose one feeling. You might try to stick with the more politically correct feeling. So in this example that I'm using with grief, you might pick the more PC response, which is sad, right? Because if you're sad that this person is gone, then surely that means that you love them. But if you admit that you're relieved in some ways, well, then that must mean you don't love them, right? So if we get into a very simplistic and linear kind of intuitive way of looking at this, we can be inclined to try to pick one emotion and leave out the other. What we actually want to do, which can feel a bit counterintuitive unless and until you start to practice this way of relating to your emotions, is we want to embrace all of them. So we can feel both sadness and relief. We can hold space within ourselves to feel all of that without making meaning out of it, right? If you feel relieved, that doesn't mean anything about how much you love them. If you're sad, that doesn't mean anything unless you put meaning to it. But really, what we want to do with our feelings is say, it's what I'm feeling, right? And so I accept that. I embrace that. I hold space for all of those feelings. I allow those competing, somewhat contradictory emotions to be present at the same time. Now, I'm using the example of grief, and grief is a really common space where we will have a dialectical emotional experience because lots of different emotions and parts of us get activated when we go through a loss. But we can have a dialectical experience about anything. We can have it about celebratory experiences in our life. We can have it about stressful experiences in our life. It just simply is tapping into the different layers of ourself that have different responses and different needs to the same event. Okay, so that's all it is. But the more awareness you have of this concept of a dialectical emotional experience, the more you can then intentionally hold space for all of your emotions without wondering, what's wrong with me? What does it mean that I'm feeling relieved? Oh my gosh, that's a terrible thing to feel. I shouldn't feel that way. And that is where this can link back up to binge eating, because a lot of times people can turn to food for that comfort or that escape when the feelings don't feel right. Okay. So if you're having a dialectical experience, that in and of itself can be disorienting, right? Why am I feeling two opposing things at the same time? How can that even be? And then if you don't like one of those emotions or more than one of those emotions, if you feel like they're not appropriate or not loving or not kind or whatever you think it might be, then you might be inclined to kind of shove those feelings aside, try to get rid of them, disconnect from them. And that's going to make you more vulnerable to emotional and binge eating. Okay. So by teaching you this concept, and for those of you who already know this concept, giving you a friendly reminder of the power of dialectical emotional processing, you can be more intentional and mindful about holding that very expansive space for all of your complicated emotional responses that are contradictory, perhaps. Some of them may not feel good, some of them may not make sense to you, but nevertheless, you respect their presence, you hold space for them, and you let them process through on their own. You will find then that your urge for emotional and binge eating is going to go way down. Okay. This is huge in your recovery process. All right. So I hope this is helpful for you, this friendly reminder of the power of a dialectical emotional experience. It's normal. It means that you're just tapped into all of the wonderfully complicated layers of your human, and we all have them. And your task is not to pick some over others. Your task isn't even necessarily to understand all of the emotions that you're feeling. You can if you want to, but if you don't, that's okay too. Your task through understanding this dialectical emotional experience is to hold this space. Okay. Give your body and your brain full permission to feel whatever they need to feel, even if they're contradictory. Okay, guys? All right. So enjoy being very observant of your dialectical emotional experiences. Practice with giving yourself that space. And in the comments below, I would love to hear some of your experiences with this process. It's a powerful tool. It's a game changer for people. And I look forward to hearing about how it changes your game as well. All right. Have a wonderful rest of your weekend, and I'll see you guys back here next week. Bye-bye.